You're listening to Venus in Retrocast, a tarot podcast for the astro-curious. I'm your host, Brandi Spradling. Each week, I explore how to deepen your understanding of the tarot using methods in astrology. Together, we're going to strengthen our relationships with ourselves and each other. So let's get into it and read some tarot, retro style. Hello, and welcome to this first episode of Venus in Retrocast. I am so honored, and it's such a joy to be here on this journey with you. And thank you for being here. On this first episode, I want to lay the groundwork for where we're going for the rest of the season. I highly recommend that you listen to this episode before diving into the first official episode where we cover the Fool and the Magician, because it lays the groundwork and it will be much easier to follow. So definitely don't skip this episode. So first I want to start by addressing who this podcast is for. And this podcast is for everyone. I want to make this a safe space for everyone. That means that I vowed to do my best at all times to use the most inclusive language possible, to make it LGBTQ affirming, to make it anti-racist, anti-capitalist, and really just invite you to look at the ways that you can incorporate that into your tarot practice and into your daily lives. So this will be a journey for me and hopefully for you as well, but hopefully this can be a space where we can have a dialogue about that. And I would love to hear from you and your contributions about the ways that you have transformed your tarot practice to make it more inclusive. And I want to say right away that I won't always get it right. That's a part of life, and I am always open to being corrected and having people tell me ways that I can be more inclusive. So I'm always learning and growing, and I want that for you as well. So feel free to email me, to fill out the form in the show notes with any comments or concerns that you have. I am very open to that. So I just want to make that known. So with that being said, let's jump right into this. What is this podcast? It's an exploration of tarot through an astrological lens. So this season we're focusing on the major arcana. Each card corresponds with either a planet or a zodiac sign. And I've posted some graphics on my Instagram page to go along with this episode, and I plan to do that with each episode. So I highly recommend that you follow me there and check that page whenever a new episode comes out so that you don't miss it. It should provide a visual for you to follow along with. So in astrology, there's something that's known as essential dignities. So there are 5 terms that I want to familiarize you with before we jump into the first episode. Domicile, detriment, exaltation, and fall. And also peregrine, but we're not really going to talk about that. But I'll explain what all these are right now. So domicile sounds just like what it means. A planet is at home, and a domicile is another word for home, in a certain zodiac sign. Some of them, based on modern or traditional rulership, can have 2 rulers. And with some of the cards, I will cover the modern and traditional. I won't do it for every single one, but as we dive in, you'll see, and I'll explain why. So each planet has a sign where it's in domicile, where it's in detriment, where it's exalted, and where it's in fall. So we've covered domicile being at home, And the sign where a planet is in detriment is where it doesn't feel comfortable. And it's in the opposite sign of the planet that it rules. So on the zodiac wheel, we have 12 signs, and each one has a sign that opposes it. So let's take Aries. It's the first sign of the zodiac. On the opposite side of the zodiac wheel is Libra, and so on and so forth. And there are plenty of places that you can go to look up a zodiac wheel and see which signs are opposite each other. So when a planet is exalted, that means that this is the placement that the planet performs at its peak. It's not at home here, but it is said to really perform well in this position. And when a planet is in fall, it sounds just like what it means. This is where it's the least comfortable. It's almost like the planet and the sign don't speak the same language, so it's very hard for them to relate to each other. And when a planet's in fall, it's in the opposite sign of the sign that it's exalted in. So the last term I want to mention is peregrine. And these won't be cards that I will be talking about when we do a specific episode, because that just means that it is a sign that's neither the point of domicile, detriment, exaltation, or fall. So all cards in the tarot correspond with each other, and there are ways that you can read them together. But I really want to focus on those opposing forces as a way to relate to the cards. So let's do an example. Let's talk about the sun. The sun is at home or in domicile in the sign of Leo. Leo rules the sun. The opposite sign of Leo is Aquarius. So that is naturally where the sun is in detriment. The sun is exalted in the sign of Aries. It's the beginning of spring. It's when the sun is at its peak, when we're transitioning from winter to spring. So that is where it's said to perform at its best. And then the sun is in fall in the sign of Libra. And if you think about it, that's the beginning of fall. The days are starting to get shorter. The sun isn't out as long during the day. And the closer we get to the winter solstice, the days get shorter and shorter. So we can think of it that way. And each card in the tarot corresponds with a planet or a sign. So continuing on with the example of the sun is ruled by the sun card in the tarot. And the opposite sign, where it would be in detriment, the way that I'm going to treat it is as if it's a reversal. And reversals don't always carry a, air quotes, bad connotation. It can just be a different expression of a sign and a different expression of the card. So the opposite sign of Leo is Aquarius, and that's ruled by the star. So in talking about the sun, when we get to that episode, I will be looking at the star in reverse and how those two cards can, give clues and information into how to read those cards. Now let's give an example of a exaltation. The sun is exalted in Aries, so that would be the Emperor. And I'm going to talk about those two cards in relationship, the sun and the Emperor. Now where the sun is in fall is Libra, and that's ruled by the Justice card. So we would look at the sun and Justice in reverse. And then we're going to put all of these things together and kind of integrate what they mean. So that is basically the format for the first half of the show. It'll be a lesson. Some episodes might be one tarot card, some might be two, and then I'll be taking questions from you, comments, and if you would like a mini tarot reading, of course, fill out the form in the show notes. And we're just gonna go on this journey together. It's going to be a little bit experimental. I'm learning as I go along. I continue to learn. I don't feel like you're ever done learning tarot and astrology. So, this will be a journey, and I'm hoping to learn from you as much as you may learn from this podcast. So another thing I want to talk about is what I will and won't do on this podcast. Something I will do is point out what each planet does and doesn't do well. And the same for the zodiac signs. What I won't do is bash signs. So I know there are a lot of astro memes that go around and they make funny jokes about the signs, and I absolutely love those. I think they're really a fun way to learn astrology. But I'm not going to do that for these purposes because I want this to be a more serious lesson in, the ways that astrology and tarot can blend. So I won't bash signs. And if I say anything with a more negative connotation, it's never directed at a person or group of people based on their zodiac placements. It's merely an expression of the sign. So we all have strengths and weaknesses. We come to this life with our own set of gifts and our own lessons to learn. And it's the same with tarot and astrology. It can be a powerful tool for self-discovery and healing and growth. So I really just want to make that clear that if I do say anything, Aries can be kind of egoistic. I'm an Aries, and I understand that that's something that is a journey for me, as well as maybe other Aries. Some Aries, it may not be as much of the case. So, as with anything in tarot and astrology, and life, really, take what resonates and leave the rest. I really hope that my teaching sparks something in you that completely lights up your tarot practice. And with that said, I would love to jump into the next episode, so I will see you there, and thanks for listening. Thanks for joining me this week on Venus and Retrocast. Make sure to visit my Instagram page at Venus and Retro Tarot for more amazing content. I post tarot spreads, collective readings, and connect with all of you. Make sure to subscribe on Anchor, Apple Podcasts, or your favorite podcast platform. If you found value in the show, I'd greatly appreciate a rating on iTunes, or tell a friend about the show. Any way you choose to support the podcast, I'm so grateful that you're here.